Ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, welcome to Ottawa City Hall, and thank you for joining us for today's ceremony. My name is Lieutenant Carl Gauthier. I'm the Director of Honors and Recognition for the Canadian Armed Forces. I am honored that the City of Ottawa has asked me to be your Master of Ceremony for this morning's important event. Je suis le lieutenant-colonel Carl Gauthier, je suis le directeur des distinctions honorifiques et reconnaissances pour les Forces armées canadiennes et je suis honoré que la Ville d'Ottawa m'ait demandé d'être le maître de cérémonie pour cette importante présentation ce matin. I now invite those who can to please rise for the arrival of Mr. Sean Casey, Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Veterans Affairs and Associate Minister of National Defence, Elder Vernon McGregor, and His Worship Mark Sutcliffe, Mayor of the City of Ottawa. J'invite ceux qui le peuvent à vouloir, s'il vous plaît, se lever pour l'arrivée des dignitaires. Please be seated. Veuillez vous asseoir. I wish to acknowledge that Ottawa is built on the unceded Algonquin-Anishinaabe territory. The peoples of the Algonquin-Anishinaabe Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. The City of Ottawa honors the peoples and land of the Algonquin-Anishinaabe Nation. The City of Ottawa honors all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people for their valuable past and present contributions to this land. Ottawa est bâti sur le territoire non cédé de la nation Anishinaabe algonquine. Les peuples de la nation Anishinaabe algonquine vivent dans ce lieu depuis des millénaires. Leur culture et leur présence l'ont imprégné et l'imprègnent encore. La Ville d'Ottawa rend hommage aux peuples et aux territoires de la nation Anishinaabe algonquine. La Ville d'Ottawa rend hommage à toutes les Premières Nations, les Inuits et les Métis et leurs précieuses contributions passées et présentes à cette terre. I would like to invite Elder Vernon McGregor from the Algonquin community of Zitigan-Zibi, Anishinaabeg, to come forward to officially welcome us onto Algonquin territory.
Oh, miigwech, thank you. Merci. Bonjour à tous et à toutes. Hello, everybody. Vernon Indigenous. I'd like to welcome you to our traditional unceded lands. I was with Natural Resources Canada yesterday for the start of their Poppy Week. And one of the things I mentioned is that for us in Algonquin, with the language, what we call peace, how we say peace is wanakiwan. And if you look at the syntax of the word wanakiwan, wanaki is, or wanadiswin is richness, and a key is the land. And what they're trying to produce with the language is very expressive, and what our ancestors meant to say is peace comes from the richness of the land, but that sometimes that causes conflict. And for us, at one time on Turtle Island, North America, in 1492, I will start with Columbus, they estimated that there was about 112 million to 160 million Indigenous or Native people on Turtle Island. By 1650, that was down to about 6 million. So that was one of the largest populations decline in the history of the humans, really. But also, though, too, as well, what they said too as well, yes, it was for the richness of also the lands that a lot of people came here. But also too as well, we all need to heal ourselves. And what the elders would say in the gatherings is, as we're healing ourselves from colonization, reconciliation, we also have to understand that our relatives that came here, because a lot of times they were also escaping violence and oppression, and to come here for a better life. So it's that understanding of Wanakiwan that we honor Remembrance Day, because if we don't learn from history, we're bound to repeat it. So I have my tobacco here, and as part of protocol, because it's such a sacred gift that anytime you do anything, it's a reminder of reciprocity. What I do is I add it back to the water or to the fire, because it's our connection from the physical world to the unseen world, to honor also our ancestors. And that's what we're doing here today too, in addition to honoring Elsa Lessard, because that's another reminder of why we need peace. So I say, miigwech. On jenya gashketochma on dose koshe non go mami kakina pamad sajiktanis wa koshe. Shwemish non in abigus. We dokwa kakina chip minopamad zawach. Chuwana kiwa jen abigus. Kanchesh quat negwede simen ashish kana nojkush negwede simen. Mom de gay migwach oje kakina gagishan don onje. Ashich we dokwa kakina pamad sajik. Mom de gay we me god wajik. Chuwana kiwach. Ashich chiminopamatsu watch nongum onjen nindondenis onje onje ne bashkadagamak abonoji shak kamashe deniswag shwen mishno me miigwech ya miigwech. Miigwech is thank you in Algonquin, c'est merci en Algonquin. J'ai dit ça 4 fois because this is such an important place, Ottawa, because of the confluence, but it also reminds us of our need for balance. And part of that balance is peace. So I look forward to and honor Elsa today too as well, and a reminder of our need for peace. Miigwech.
Thank you very much, Elder McGregor, for this welcome. It is now my pleasure to invite our host at this morning's event, His Worship, Mark Sutcliffe, Mayor of the City of Ottawa, to come forward to offer his remarks and to speak to the accomplishments and service of our honoree for the 2025 commemorative street naming for veterans, the late Elsa Lessard.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Gauthier. Bonjour tout le monde. C'est vraiment un plaisir de vous accueillir aujourd'hui ici à l'Hôtel de Ville. Aujourd'hui, nous nous réunissons pour rendre hommage à une Canadienne vraiment remarquable. Welcome to City Hall for this very special ceremony today. It's great to see all of you here. It's a delight to join you. It's an honor to be with you. Today we come together to honor a truly remarkable Canadian and to continue a tradition that we have in the city that recognizes the courage of our veterans and those who serve in uniform today. And I want to begin by acknowledging and thanking Elder McGregor. Always great to see you. Thank you for what you bring to so many of the ceremonies we have here in Ottawa. I want to welcome Sean Casey, the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Veterans Affairs and Associate Minister of National Defence. Thank you for joining us. My colleagues from Ottawa City Council, Ralston King and Teresa Kavanagh, great to see you. And most especially, the family and friends of the late Elsa Lessard. It is such an honor to have learned Elsa's story, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. Every year, the city's commemorative street naming for veterans program invites us to recognize a local veteran whose life and service represent the very, very best of our community and our country. Chaque année, le programme municipal de dénomination commémorative des rues rend hommage à un vétéran local dont la vie et le service reflètent le meilleur de notre communauté. This morning, we're honoring Elsa Lessard. Elsa was a proud member of the Women's Royal Canadian Naval Service during the Second World War. It was a service that became known as the Wrens. Elsa grew up in Ottawa, and she learned Morse code from her older brother when she was a young girl. And that's a skill that she would one day use to intercept secret German radio messages during the Battle of the Atlantic. She served at 2 secret stations, one south of Ottawa and another that was hidden on a farm near Gunningsville, New Brunswick. Elsa spent long hours listening through static and carefully recording coded transmissions from German submarines. Those messages were sent to the famous Bletchley Park in England, to help protect Allied ships that were crossing the Atlantic. Ces efforts ont sauvé des vies et ont contribué à mettre fin à la guerre. These efforts, this work, saved lives, and it helped bring the war closer to an end. Yet Elsa like all who served in this secret effort and did this secret work, kept it quiet for decades. The world did not learn about their role until many, many years later. After the war, Elsa became a teacher and an advocate for women in the military. She reminded everyone that the Wrens were full members of the Navy and that their contributions helped lead the Allied effort to victory. Over the years, she received many honors, including the Minister of Veterans Affairs Commendation, the Bletchley Park Service Badge, and the King Charles III Coronation Medal. Even at 103 years old, she was still telling remarkable stories from her time in service. Many people might remember her appearance at the Canadian War Museum last year when she brought a smile to everyone's face with her swing dancing. Elsa passed away this summer after a long and extraordinary life. By naming Elsa Lessard Private in the Water Ridge development near the former Rockcliffe Air Base, we are preserving her story for future generations, and we are honoring her incredible commitment and service. Every person who sees this street sign marked with the poppy will be reminded of Elsa's service and the sacrifices made by so many Canadians. So on behalf of the City of Ottawa, I want to say thank you to the Lessard family for sharing Elsa's story with us today. I also want to thank our partners at Veterans Affairs Canada, the Royal Canadian Legion, and Mattamy Homes for helping us keep this tradition alive. And now I'd like to invite Dr. Janice Lessard, Elsa's daughter, Elder Verna McGregor, Councillor Ralston King, and Connor Sutherland from Mattamy Homes to join me for the presentation of the commemorative street sign.
Ladies and gentlemen, you will notice, of course, that on the sign appears the word privé and private, and these only describe the type of street. They're not a military rank, of course. Elsa was in the Navy, so not a private. Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to Mattamy Homes, our local developer, for offering up a street in their new Water Ridge development where the old Rockcliffe Air Base used to be. Merci, Monsieur le maire, et merci à Mattamy Homes, le promoteur de notre région, qui a offert une rue de son nouveau lotissement Water Ridge, situé à l'emplacement où se trouvait auparavant la base aérienne de Rockcliffe. I now invite Dr. Janice Lessard, daughter of the late Elsa Lessard, to come forward and offer remarks on behalf of her family. J'invite maintenant la Dr. Janice Lessard, fille de feu Elsa Lessard, à venir nous dire quelques mots au nom de sa famille.
Wow. Your Worship, Mayor Sutcliffe, thank you so much for inviting me to represent the Lessard family to this unveiling of the street sign honoring my mother, Elsa Lessard. Of course, Mum was proud to have served in the Navy, along with her two brothers. The oldest, Frank Lessard, and two of his daughters are alive today in their early 90s, but unable to travel, as well as their younger brother, Ozzy, who has 4 kids, 3 of whom are here today. That is where Elsa met my father, who was also a World War II veteran, Navy veteran. He served on a destroyer. Mom had 2 children, my brother, John, who has 3 children, plus myself, and my child, who is also here today. And I like to point out that Nicole has a huge tattoo of the Women's Royal Canadian Naval Service on her leg. Big. However, Mum was equally devoted to the community of Ottawa, where she lived for most of her 103 years. Anciens de Lessard, the first Lessard in Canada, was her fifth times great-grandfather, who in 1646 donated his land to build the Basilica of St. Anne de Beaupré, for which the Roman Catholic Church recognizes it for its many miracles of curing the sick and disabled. The Lessard family have been living in Ottawa for the last 175 years. Elsa's parents were married at the Paroisse Saint-Jean-Baptiste, where most of her 6 siblings were baptized. Her mother, Lucilla, was an immigrant from England and from whom Elsa got her very Victorian values. Lucilla was a social activist. She befriended and worked with the first female mayor of a Canadian city, Ottawa's own Mayor, Dr. Charlotte Whitten. Elsa was also interested in history, which explains her passion to make known the contribution of women to the Royal Canadian Navy. She even participated in anthropological digs in Israel. She was our family historian. She was well recognized by the Latter-day Saints for her in-person genealogical work in French. She told our family 50 years ago that we were direct descendants of Étienne de Lessard and his wife Catherine, a well-known Wendat, not Huron, Jesuit educator. As a result, we have all been very proud of our Métis heritage. Unfortunately, my own genealogical endeavors cannot confirm this history. Oh well, as Elsa frequently said, people do their best, and Elsa certainly did that. Elsa made many contributions to Ottawa. She volunteered at the National Art Gallery, where she gave lectures, and at the Bytown Museum, and many others. She donated to the Canadian Museum of History, including her own hand-me-down brown wicker doll carriage that was made circa 1900. She agreed to the request by the National Archives of Canada to will to them her collection of slides of her many worldwide trips, as Elsa was an artist in oil paint and photography, and in so many other ways that Elsa's contributed to Ottawa, I don't have time to list. On behalf of the Lessard family, I would like to thank the City of Ottawa, the Anishinaabe First Nation, Veterans Affairs, and Mattamy Homes for honoring Elsa Lessard as a local veteran in this way. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lessard, for these important remarks. To honor Elsa Lessard and all fallen veterans, I invite those who can to please rise for the last post, followed by a moment of silence, the rouse and the lament. Pour honorer Elsa Lessard et tous les anciens combattants qui sont morts au combat, j'invite les personnes qui le peuvent à bien vouloir se lever pour la dernière sonnerie, qui sera suivie d'un moment de silence, du réveil et de l'élégie. may now be seated. Veuillez vous asseoir. Thank you to the Cameron Highlanders of Ottawa, Duke of Edinburgh's own, and the Central Band of the Canadian Armed Forces for this rendition of the Last Post, the Rouse, and the Lament. I also wish to thank the two sentries from the Cameron Highlanders of Ottawa, Duke of Edinburgh's own, on duty guarding the new street sign today. The City of Ottawa is honored of the relationship it has with the men and women of its official regiment and thanks them for their continued service to the city and to Canada. Je tiens également à remercier les deux sentinelles qui gardent aujourd'hui la nouvelle plaque de rue. La Ville d'Ottawa est honorée des relations qu'elle entretient avec les hommes et les femmes de son régiment officiel et les remercie pour leur service continu à la Ville et au Canada. I now invite His Worship, Mark Sutcliffe, Mayor of the City of Ottawa, to come forward for the reading and presentation of the proclamation. I also invite Sean Casey, Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Veterans Affairs and Associate Minister of National Defence, to come forward to accept the proclamation on behalf of the Government of Canada.
Need my glasses for this. Whereas each year, we honor the sacrifices and achievements of Canadians who served their country in times of war and peace, particularly those from the Ottawa region. And whereas on November 11th, 2025, we commemorate those who fought selflessly to allow our country to remain strong and free. And whereas, as the theme of this year's tribute is Canadian Armed Forces in the Americas, we recognize and remember our military achievements and sacrifices within Canada and throughout the Americas, reflecting on the vital role of the Canadian Armed Forces in keeping our nation safe, sovereign, and strong. And whereas we are committed to thank all those who served and perished protecting Canadian values, especially our freedom, and those who continue to serve in uniform, therefore I, Mark Sutcliffe, Mayor of the City of Ottawa, do hereby proclaim November 5th to November 11th, 2025, Veterans Week in Ottawa.
Mr. Sean Casey, Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Veterans Affairs and Associate Minister of National Defence, will now present the 2025 Veterans Affairs Canada poster to His Worship. Monsieur Casey présentera maintenant l'affiche 2025 d'Anciens Combattants Canada à son honneur. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sean Casey, Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Veterans Affairs and Associate Minister of National Defence, will now offer his remarks.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel Gauthier. Your Worship, Mayor Sutcliffe, Elder Verna McGregor, Dr. Janice Lessard, members of City Council, members of the Canadian Armed Forces, family members of Canadian veterans, members of the Royal Canadian Legion, distinguished guests, veterans, friends. It's my absolute honor to join you today on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. And thank you, Elder McGregor, for that welcome onto the traditional territory. Today's ceremony is emblematic of the deep respect that we have for all the brave Canadians who have worn a military uniform. In times of war, military conflict, and peace, our fellow citizens have proudly defended the ideals that we, as a country, believe in, and they've gone to great lengths to protect our peace and freedom. La Semaine des Anciens Combattants est un moment de commémoration où nous nous souvenons solennellement des sacrifices consentis par tant de personnes en notre nom. Non loin d'ici, les préparatifs vont bon train pour la cérémonie annuelle du jour de souvenir au monument commémoratif de guerre du Canada. Les Canadiens s'y rassembleront la semaine prochaine pour rendre hommage à tous les anciens combattants et aux membres actuels de nos forces armées. But here today, we're thinking of one individual in particular, Elsa Lessard. And as you heard, she was born into a Navy family. Elsa Lessard was a 17-year-old high school student when the Second World War broke out. In 1943, she joined the newly established Women's Royal Canadian Naval Service, known as the Wrens. She was soon posted to a secret base in New Brunswick, not far from my home in Prince Edward Island, where she became a secret listener for encrypted radio messages from the German Navy. This top secret work helped the Allies find the U-boats that were sinking Allied supply ships crossing the Atlantic Ocean, and it was critical to the war effort. So important and so secret, it was revealed only decades after the end of the war. Elsa Lessard's service did not end with the war. She was a devoted participant in commemorative events. She was also dedicated to raising public awareness of women's military service. And I love the way she put it. She said, "I made a point when I discovered that men didn't know that women had been in the war 25 years after the war. Then I said, before I left the planet, the Canadians would know there had been women in the war." Ce que nous faisons aujourd'hui, c'est préserver l'héritage de cette canadienne remarquable, afin que nous puissions nous souvenir à jamais de son engagement envers le Canada pendant la Seconde Guerre mondiale et de son travail acharné pour que l'on se souvienne des hommes et des femmes qui ont fait une telle différence. Elsa passed away in July, as you've heard, at the age of 103. Now it's our duty to continue her efforts to pass on those stories to future generations. When people look up at the street sign bearing the name Privé Elsa Lessard Private, I hope they'll be curious about who this remarkable woman was and wonder why a street was named for her. We want them to ask and to learn about her commitment to Canada. And when they do that, I hope they hear about Elsa's accomplishments in protecting the people crossing the Atlantic Ocean during the war and find her devotion to remembrance to be an inspiration. The theme of this year's Veterans Week is the Canadian Armed Forces in the Americas, but it just as easily could be a reference to the vital service kept hidden for decades after the conflict. As Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Veterans Affairs, please accept my thanks and the thanks of all Canadians for recognizing this former member of our military in such an important and meaningful way. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Casey, for sharing your insightful reflections with us today. Remembering the past and sharing the vital experiences with future generations is vital. I now invite two cadets from the Royal Canadian Sea Cadet Corps Falkland to come forward and recite Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae's famous poem, In Flanders Fields, in English and French. Il est essentiel pour les générations futures que nous nous souvenions du passé et que nous partagions les expériences vécues. J'invite maintenant deux cadets du corps de cadets de la Marine royale canadienne Falkland à venir à l'avant pour réciter le fameux poème Au chant d'honneur du lieutenant-colonel John McCrae en anglais et en français. Ladies and gentlemen, Petty Officer Second Class Florence Haba and Petty Officer Second Class Reza Alassi.
In Flanders fields, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our sky and that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly. Scarce heard among the guns below, we are the dead. Short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders field. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw the torch, be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
Dans les champs de Flandre, le vent souffle.
sur les coquelicots, entre les rangs de croix qui marquent notre peau. Là-haut où les alouettes volent dans l'azur, mais ici, dans le vacarme des canons, on entend à peine leurs cris. Nous sommes les morts. Or, il y a peu de jours, nous vivions, éblouis d'aube et de couchons. Nous aimions et nous étions aimés. Mais aujourd'hui, nous glissons dans les champs de Flandre. Alors, nos mains défaillantes vous tendent le flambeau, à vous de le lever bien haut. Et contre l'adversaire, reprendre le combat. Car si vous laissez périr avec nous cette fois, nous ne dormirons pas, même si les coquelicots de nouveau fleurissent dans les champs de Flandre. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much to both cadets for this rendition of In Flanders Fields. Merci beaucoup à nos deux cadets pour leur interprétation d'Au Chant d'honneur. You may have noticed upon your arrival a small display case. One of the items on display is a German Enigma machine and a wireless headset like the one Elsa Lessard would have used during her service. The City of Ottawa wishes to thank Mr. Richard Brisson for sharing these items with us today. If you did not have the opportunity to see them, please make sure that you take a look on your way out. Vous avez peut-être remarqué un petit présentoir à votre arrivée ici. L'un des articles présentés est une machine à chiffrer allemande Enigma et un casque d'écoute comme celui qu'utilisait Elsa Lessard. La Ville d'Ottawa souhaite remercier M. Richard Brisson de nous avoir présenté ces objets aujourd'hui. Si vous n'avez pas eu l'occasion de les admirer, veuillez le faire lors de votre départ. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. Thank you so much for joining us today. Mesdames et messieurs, ceci conclut la cérémonie d'aujourd'hui. Au nom de son honneur, le maire d'Ottawa, merci d'avoir pris part à cet événement important. Bonne fin de journée. Merci.